What's up, beautiful world? This is TNA, Top Notch Audio, and welcome to another episode of r/slash entitled parents. Our first and only story will be Update, entitled Mom Can't Accept That Her 3-Year-Old Child Isn't a Prodigy, Part 2, The Termination. There will be a link to the original story, entitled Mom Can't Accept That Her 3-Year-Old Child Isn't a Prodigy, posted in the description section of this video. If this is the first time listening, remember to hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand corner. If this is not your first time, welcome back. Enjoy the stories. And this story is posted by u/RexCaliber. Update, entitled Mom Can't Accept That Her 3-Year-Old Child Isn't a Prodigy, Part 2, The Termination. Ahoy, I'm back, after almost a month without anything to talk about. Most of the stuff EM pulled over the last 3 lessons were pretty tame and not worth talking about. Today though, turns out even Dee's dad is an entitled little liar, so things got interesting today. If you haven't already read my last post about Dee and EM, here it is. It gives a background to EM's bullspit and why she's a horrible parent in general, though it did make Dee's dad seem nice. That is very wrong. He's a filthy liar. Here's the cast, because today's show involves more people. Dee, my 3-year-old student. EM, entitled Mom, Chinese national, very traditional and stubborn. ED, entitled Dad, local, very much a liar. SA, school admin, and the poor bloke that got pulled into this unintentionally. CW1 and CW2, my 2 coworkers. CW1 is the manager of the outlet, while CW2 is a no-nonsense type lady. They're both very nice in general, but not so much the parents who try to exploit their newer staff. Me, the clown that had to entertain EM and ED. Here we go, again. First things first, EM and ED show up 10 minutes late with D. I know this and that EM and ED are both liars because I come in and out of the classroom every minute or two to check if my students are here, usually starting this routine about 5 minutes before class begins. Some parents like to drop their kids off early, so I'd rather be there to take them into my care about they show up a few minutes early. When EM, ED, and D finally show up, D just starts to take off his shoes, get his temperature taken, and receive some hand sanitizer from SA. This is all important because it proves why EM and ED are liars. SA is always outside the front desk to receive students. He'll bring students in if the teacher is inside preparing for class or attending to another student, since we're not allowed to leave any kid alone at any given point. If D had shown up on time, SA would have brought him into my classroom, assuming I wasn't outside. He would also have done the temperature check and hand sanitizer when they showed up and not 10 minutes late. This proves to me that they were indeed late. ED, EM, and I didn't regard each other much as I took D into my care. I just had him say bye-bye to his parents, a little trick I used to reinforce that now is class time. D follows me in, his parents leave, and all is good. I go about my class teaching D the letter F. I know, make your F word jokes. I must admit the number of times I thought F stands for F me is a lot more than none. D's writing and coloring has improved a lot since my last post. I taught him the command push hard when he holds a crayon, so he uses some strength when writing and coloring. He was able to do his writing and very aggressively colored a fish, even though I tried to convince him to color the fox, french fries, and frog in his book. He didn't touch any of the other drawings. His reading and pronunciation of words was roughly the same. He could say fox and fish, but not french fries or frog. I don't expect much. Consonant blending is something we usually teach 4 to 5-year-olds instead, and the FR sound can be pretty tough for a lot of young kids, especially those who don't grow up in an English-speaking household. Overall, the lesson was fun, and he could even show me how a frog hops and how a fox sneaks around the forest. Hell comes when class is over. The school has a policy where even if the student comes late, lessons end on time. You do not get an extension to ensure that your child has a full hour class. If you're late, it's your problem. You do not get to push back other students' class or the teacher's plans after work because you couldn't show up on time. I helped D pack up and take him outside 5 minutes before his lesson ends, a protocol that gives the teacher time to talk to the parents and give feedback. When his parents aren't there, I suspect they're going to come late again, as they pulled the exact same thing last week where they dropped D off late and came back late, holding me back from clocking out. CW2 is outside at the front desk as well, sending a kid off with his parents. When she's done, I casually mention that I'm probably going to be stuck outside for another 15 minutes. Me, hey, Wish I could go back inside. I'm probably going to be stuck out here for a while. CW2. What? Why? Isn't your lesson over? Me. Yeah, but D's parents are probably going to come pick them up late. They did the exact same thing last week. Came 15 minutes late for class and thought I'd still give them a full hour lesson. CW2. That's not right. Let me call them. You don't need to extend the class because they're late. CW2 calls ED and lets him know that class is over and I'm waiting with D. When she's done with the call, she mentions to me that ED claimed they weren't late and that I was the one who was late in receiving them. CW2 already suspects they're lying since she knows I check outside for my students before my class even begins and tells me that if they try to keep me, to mention that I have another online class that I need to go to, so they'll bugger off. CW2 goes back in and I keep waiting. 10 minutes later, ED and EM show up. D runs to them and gives EM a hug while I start to speak to ED. I'm about to give the lesson report so I can just finish up and go home when he cuts me off. Me. Hi, sir. Sorry about calling you. So, today D learned. ED. Hey, what was this about us being late for class? We weren't late. We were standing right here. You were the one who was late in receiving us. Me. I'm sorry, sir. I've been coming in and out every minute or so since 5 minutes before class began to check if you were here. I never saw you. I apologize if you were perhaps further down and I did not see you. ED. This is ridiculous. We were standing here. No one came to receive us. Me. Sir, I can assure you I was coming in and out and checking frequently. I did not see any of you out here on time. At this point, SA is coming back from buying his lunch. ED stops him and SA looks very confused. Note that SA's lunch begins halfway through my lesson, so he was definitely at the front desk before and when my lesson began. ED. Hey you saw us standing here, right? We were here on time. The teacher failed to come receive us on time. SA. Sorry, sir. I didn't see any of you. I would have brought your child in if OP wasn't outside to receive you. Sorry, I need to eat. SA excuses himself from the inferno I'm desperately wanting to raise against these fools. I want to just move past it, give the lesson report, and go home. But ED decides he's not done. ED. He has no idea what he's talking about. It was another guy who saw us then. Me. Sir, he's the only male staff we have on Saturday. You couldn't have seen another male staff behind the counter. But it's okay. I apologize. It's on me this time. I must have missed you if you were here on time. Anyway, here's the lesson report. I delivered my report showing ED that D could write and was more enthusiastic in his coloring. ED notices that none of the other pictures are colored except for the fish. ED. Why didn't he color them? Me. I repeatedly asked him to color, but he just kept coming back to the fish. This isn't a bad thing. It just shows that he has an interest in one thing over another. He was also able to write better, even though I still have to push down his hand and guide him in using more strength when writing. I show ED the book and mention that it isn't finished because I tried to focus more on arts and crafts to see if D would catch on to that. I made him a paper circlet with fox ears he colored in and was wearing. Us teachers don't have to make our students finish the book since it is our discretion as to how fast the class should go. Most parents prefer it so they can see that something was accomplished, but most parents understand when we explain that they weren't into it that day. ED has very little reaction, so I continue and mention that the lesson reports are now all digital. We used to use a hard copy, a sheet of paper we ticked off and had the parents keep. However, we've since decided to switch to our online reports, so it's all done on an iPad on our teacher's portal and the parents are emailed a copy. As I'm clicking around on the iPad and filling out my report, EM buzzes over to me and gets uncomfortably close behind me. She's leaning over my shoulder to see what I'm doing, though I'm pretty sure it was useless because she couldn't read English. I also have no idea why she wanted to learn so far over me. It's not like I'm tall. I'm 159 centimeters, 5'2", and she's at least 167 centimeters, 5'6", in heels, so there was really no reason for her to peer over my shoulder like that. Once I'm done with the report, I turn the iPad around in my hand so ED can read it. Instead of just reading it, he grabs the iPad out of my hands instead, almost making me drop the book and flashcards I was also holding. EM snorts in contempt as I quickly grab D's stuff so nothing would fall. Once ED is done reading the report, he shoves it back in my face so I can submit it. I pretend to be cordial, say goodbye, give D a genuine wave and a high five, and head back inside to grab my stuff and go home. I would have just left right there and then, but SA asked me what was up and to fill him in. I relay the entire spit show to him and he laughs. Though he mentions EM and ED were probably lying about being on time, I mentioned that it isn't the first time they've done it, but the conversation moves along to other things unrelated to EM and ED. About 5 minutes after I've gone back inside, I say goodbye to SA and leave the room so I can head back to my classroom, pack up for the next teacher, and scram. When I open the door, I'm face to face with EM. We're inside the school area and she's in her goddarn shoes. Great. Sorry to the cleaner who has to clean the floor in extra time because one T wouldn't take off her shoes. Me. Hi ma'am, can I help you? EM in broken English. Yeah? Go outside. I want to talk to you. Yep, she said it exactly like that. Understandable, she doesn't speak English. I internally groan, roll my eyes at her back, and follow her out, where ED and D are still standing. I go up to ED and ask what I can do for him. And then comes the phrase that made me thrive. No, not asking to see the manager. ED, I want to terminate D's classes. Bingo. As much as I love D, I cannot handle his parents. And for the record, I never once suggested they terminate classes. This was purely out of their own choice, as I've been nothing but cordial, if not pleasant to them. Me, I'll bring SA out to see you through the process. I head back inside and tell SA, who is still eating his lunch, sorry man, hope I didn't interrupt your pinto bean quinoa salad time, that ED and EM wanted to cancel D's classes. He stares at me and tells me to tell CW1 since he isn't really authorized to cancel classes. I go to CW1 and tell her about it. Me, hey CW1, ED wants to cancel D's classes. CW1, really? Why? Whose student is that? Me, mine. I don't know, I guess they've had enough of me. CW1 goes outside to talk to EM and ED while I go back into my classroom to pack up. I hang around, texting my mom about it all before finally grabbing my bag and leaving. As I'm out of my classroom, CW2 asks how it went. I tell her all about it, and her disdain for ED and EM is clear as a cloudless day. CW1 comes back inside and looks to CW2. CW1, CW2, please come help me. CW2, why? CW1, ED wants to terminate classes for D, but this is only his 5th lesson. He wants a full refund back. CW2, didn't the contract they signed say the fees are non-refundable? Do you want me to come help you? Did you tell them you're the manager? CW1, I just said I'm a teacher. OP, what did you say I was? Me, I didn't tell him anything. I said I finally admin to start the process. Went to SA. SA told me to find you, so I came to you. CW1, oh, okay, good. CW2, aren't they aware that most students don't adjust for a few months? So what if the kid can't read perfectly? He's going to need some time to pick up. CW1, I told them that, but they were adamant about terminating classes. Just come out here and help me. CW2 in her big mama voice. All right, I got this. CW2 goes out to the front desk. I ask CW1 what went on outside, and she tells me ED and EM were demanding a full refund even for the classes they already had. I'd understand wanting a refund for the classes they paid for but didn't have, but demanding a refund for the ones they had? Typical. I asked CW1 to keep me updated on whether ED and EM terminate classes, and that if they do, to let me know if a Sunday 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. class opens so I don't lose out on my pay. I grab my stuff, shove my earpieces in, and go home. So far, I haven't heard from CW1 over text yet. At least, if they don't terminate classes, they'll at least request a new teacher. I love D very much, but his parents drive me crazy. Seems like they drive just about every other teacher crazy. I'll leave an update in the comments on whether D's classes are terminated or if they find another teacher. Thanks for reading, and please never be like this. That was one amazing story. To hear the best stories of the week, click on the video in the top left-hand corner. To hear more Reddit stories all related to what you just heard, click on the video in the top right-hand corner. If you have not already done so, click on the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. Once again, this is TNA, Top Notch Audio. Thank you for listening and have yourself a great day.